Good morning, everybody. We'll get started shortly, so hang in there. All right. Well, I still have a few things to do, but I've run out of music. So I better move on to the next phase. And for this straight stitch Singer 185J from Canada, I'm not going to need all of this because I don't have a wide variety of stitches to demonstrate. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half or maybe even a little bit less. And as the title implies, our own Emma, that is pretty much a household name, has a brother out in the great state of Maryland, near Annapolis. And Emma asked me probably about 4 weeks ago, I guess, or so, something like that. She said, my brother's birthday is the end of July, and I would love to get him a sewing machine from the workshop so that he can do some mending and some other things that he's interested in trying to do. And would you be willing to prepare a machine? Do you have one in mind? I said, I do. I said, I've got this 185J from 1954 that's in my personal collection. I think he would love it, not even knowing that Nestor is Emma's brother's name. He apparently, his favorite color is like a green. And obviously these machines, the 185Js, 185Ks that came out of Canada near St. John's, they're that celery green color. They're not really a bright green. They're kind of a soft celery green color, very much like the featherweights that came out of Canada as well. Many of them have that same colors. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Emma has such a featherweight in her collection that would have come out of Canada and have that unique color that a lot of people will call white, but it in fact is, according to Singer, it's a celery color, not a white color. So it'll be fun today to present this machine with the understanding that it's going to be going to Emma's brother out in Maryland. Now, if someone would like to take on a quick little research project, I'm going to give you the serial number for this machine. I've already told you 1954, and that's because I communicated with Emma last night in preparation for the live stream, and I said the way they do the Canadian serial numbers, at least for this model, is they bracket the years of potential production. In other words, instead of having a targeted birth date, it gives you a small bracket, usually about 3 to 5 years that these machines would have been manufactured within that prefix for the serial number. And then you've got some discretion, which I think is kind of fun. You've got some discretion then to pick the year of birth for your sewing machine. We've done this before with other machines. And so I talked to Emma, I gave her the bracket, and she said 1954. That's what I want. So I'm going to let you look it up as well. I'm going to exclude Emma because I think Emma's probably already done it. But invite the rest of you, look up the serial number. You're going to find, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a help to begin with, you're going to find that you're not going to find it in the traditional listing spot on ISMAX where we're used to going. It's not going to be under that ISMAX summary that we typically will look up all of our serial numbers at. You're going to have to be a little bit more clever, and I know you are, to be able to find the place to look up these serial numbers and then identify the bracket that applies to Nestor's machine. And then we can kind of move forward from there. And I'll be asking you other questions too about our Canadian friends and their manufacturing of Singer sewing machines up there, because there are some good, I think, some good information and some good facts that I want you to know, so you can then take those facts into your circles, whether it's on Facebook, Etsy, Pinterest, locally, wherever, and pass that information along to make other people more knowledgeable about the production efforts of Singer sewing machines up north in the great country of Canada. And that is Christine's neck of the woods, isn't it? Christine, one of my leadership team members, who has had a lot of stuff going on, just crazy, busy, running this way, running that way. And she's almost a little bit off the radar, but we've been keeping tabs on her, and I'm sure she'll be back at live streams soon enough. So let me give you that serial number and we'll go from there. I'm also going to quickly open up the live stream on my phone and make sure that we've got good audio and video quality. My test of the upload speed this morning was excellent. So T-Mobile, that provides my 5G network, they must have extra people dangling from the pole or the tower, putting their arms and legs out to boost our signal a little bit today. So I'm hoping we don't have any issues during this very special live stream to feature this machine for Emma's brother Nestor out in Maryland. And I just realized I was working on this machine. I took my ring off. I feel a little bit naked, so I'm going to put my ring back on before I forget. And that way I'm ready to launch into this live stream officially. Okay. Give me just a second and I'll give you that serial number after I get past my commercial. What are they advertising? Jiminy Crickets. I have no idea what they're knitting or doing something, kind of like the knitting that Mindy out in Las Vegas just did for my really cool socks. Okay. I'm going to get past it eventually. Audio sounds good. I'm listening to it right now. So I'm going to turn the volume down. Video looks good as well. So I've just done a quick little tech verification that it sounds like our audio and our video. Great news. And then we're going to go ahead and launch into this after I give you an opportunity to look up the bracket birth date for Emma's brother's machine out in Maryland. So the serial number for this 185J, and if someone will be kind enough to type it into the live chat as well, the serial number is J as in Juliet, D as in David, 825813. Let me say it again. Serial number on Nestor's 185J is J as in Juliet, D as in David, 825813. 813 are the last three numbers. And again, I would like to exclude Emma, if that's okay, so that someone else can dig into this, see if they can find us that bracket for this particular machine based on the serial number. And then I'll share some other interesting facts with you as well about the production efforts of Singer up in Canada that I think are important for you to know. And that way you can pass it along to other folks as well. But I really love, let me just say this, I really do love the look of these Canadian 185Js and 185Ks. They have a chiseled, masculine look to them. They're not, on the portion coming off of the pillar, they're not a straight line. They've got beautiful chisel features to that arm that extends to the faceplate that really, in my opinion at least, give it a really, really catchy looking, masculine, are you kidding me, rock hard, solid type machine that I know when Nestor sits down to it out in Maryland, he's not going to question for a second his manhood. He's going to sit down to that machine and say, whoa, this baby's on steroids. And speaking of steroids with relation to the 185Js and the 185Ks, does anyone know, anyone at all, does anyone know what size motor, what size engine, as our friends over in Europe say, what size engine does this 185J have that's going to be heading out to Maryland so that Nestor can have fun with this great machine? What size engine? And along with that, I'll give you the serial number one more time. J as in Juliet, D as in David, 825813 is the serial number. So I'm going to look at the live chat real quick, say some good mornings, and then we're going to be launching into this 185J pretty doggone quick. Pretty doggone quick. All right, I'm going to scroll all the way up. Scroll all the way up. Well, I can actually brag a little bit this morning. I seldom, if ever, am able to say this, but I was actually the first one in the classroom today. I was actually the first one in the classroom, and I typed that little welcome, that little introductory statement. And then right afterwards, Susie from Minnesota popped in. So I don't know if Susie's a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, but she might have been getting that final little preparation done on whatever beverage of choice she enjoys during live streams. And I just snuck in, barely snuck in before her. I think it was a matter of seconds. I hit enter and boom, she was there. So, I mean, if I had delayed even a second or so, I would have been the second in the classroom as usual. So that's kind of fun, isn't it? To Emma. Emma, again, her brother. This is for her brother, Nestor, out in Maryland, who lives near the Annapolis area. And, you know, it's always great to have Emma here. She even joins us on weekends when she's working. Incredible dedication, and I so much admire it. Good morning also to Joelle from the great state of California. And I haven't forgotten Joelle's 12, what is it? Maybe I did forget it. Noel's FOF 1222E, which I will be presenting I've been doing a couple of final adjustments on it. It's a very, very complex machine, incredibly complex. And I want to make sure everything is up to speed before I put it underneath the bright lights. 95% of it is done. I just need to go through and do the final verifications. So good morning to Joelle and all of the good folks out in Bakersfield, California. Good morning also to my good friend Candido out in New York. And Candido, true confessions, I was planning on getting your parts Viking 1010 shipped this past week. It didn't happen. But I promise you it's on the checklist right at the very top for this week. And then I'll send you the tracking information. Good morning also to another great Californian, Alex Alcas, out in the great state of California. Always great to have Alex here as well. Good morning also to Renee. Renee's a local gal, and again, she contributed that beautiful diamond art from our past contest that we did. Who else do we have? Who else? Good morning also to Teresa. Great to have Teresa here as well. And also a special welcome to Tim. Great to have Tim here in the live stream and the live chat as well. Oh, my favorite gal in Nevada, to Mindy, also the one that very thoughtfully made those beautiful knitted socks, if you will, the last live streams, that they're going to keep my Tootsies no matter how cold the temperatures get in Wisconsin, Alaska, Antarctica, doesn't matter. They're beautiful, woolen, knitted, gorgeous socks, and I'm going to be enjoying those a lot as the temperatures start to drop in a couple of months or so. Good morning also to Kathy. Great to have Kathy King here as well. Who else do we have? Oh, good morning as well to Jenny, one of our leadership team members and also our ambassador for needles. And great to have Jenny here as well. Let's see here. I think I got everybody. I think I greeted everybody that's in the live stream, and or I should say, everyone that's in the live chat, everyone that has visibility that's in the live chat. I've had a chance to greet everybody that I can see anyway. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the leadership team members to take care of the family and to to be involved in leading and keeping us on course in the live chat and engaging the rest of the audience. And we're going to learn a little bit more about production for sewing machines up in Canada. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you about our Canadian production for Singer up in Canada is it was not always a primary production point, but it was a finishing production point for another England, and also that came out of Kilbowie, Scotland. In other words, they would send the machines. They still needed something. They still needed something. Maybe they needed motors attached. Maybe they needed other factors in finishing their production, and they would ship them out of England and primarily out of Kilbowie, Scotland, and they would the St. John's area of Canada, and up there they would do the finishing touches, and then they would put those machines out into the marketplace in Canada and also ship over the border to the United States as well. So production in Canada was sometimes a final phase effort to get that sewing machine finished, ready for sale, and out there to the marketplace for someone to purchase it. And that's okay. A lot of companies would do that, where they were moving the machines through different phases, sometimes thousands of miles. And then that machine would finally be finished and then be distributed to the public for sale after that. So no exception here with our Canadian friends to the north. Now, does anyone know, with regard to that plant up in Canada? It's obviously it was in the Quebec, Canada area. Does anyone know when that factory up there was opened? When was that factory opened up in Canada for Singer? And approximately when did it close? When did it open? When did it close up there in Canada? If anyone knows that, go ahead and type it into the live chat if you would. And if you need to look it up, I understand. That's totally fine. And then also, lastly, as a bonus question, how much did it cost? How much did it cost to build that production plant up in the Quebec, Canada area for Singer back in the day? So how much did it cost to build the factory up there in Canada near St. John, Quebec, Canada? And when did it open? When did it close? So really three questions for you. I'm really making you all work early here on a Saturday morning, but I think it's well worth it. So go ahead and jump into that if you would, and see if you can get those answers in. And I didn't notice in the live chat, unless I missed it, I didn't notice that anyone specifically looked up the bracket date for this 185J based on the serial number I gave. So I'll give the serial number one more time. But if I missed it, if one of the leaders would go ahead and text me and say, no, we did get it. We so and so posted it, then I'd like to acknowledge that individual if they got the answer right. But again, we're looking for the bracket date. We're looking for how much it cost to build that factory up in Quebec, Canada, St. John's area. And then when did it open? When did it shut its doors up there in Canada? So a lot of questions, but this is stuff you need to know. Being the smartest students and the smartest fellow teachers on the entire internet, especially in our niche space, you need to know this stuff so that when you step out there and someone in a Facebook group or otherwise starts spouting craziness about information that's absolutely inaccurate, you can be that guiding force to get them back on track with the correct information about the Canadian production for Singer Canada. Canada Singer, one of the two. Yeah. Oh, Mindy had an issue with audio. Is anyone else having audio issues? Can you hear me okay? If the audio quality is okay, please give me a thumbs up, uh, or give me a smiley face or something like that, so that I know we're good to go as far as audio. Are you guys awake yet? Come on! All right. So the serial number again on Nestor's machine, Emma's brother's machine, Nestor. The serial number on the machine that you're looking at right now is J as in Juliet, D as in David, 825813. JD 825813. And again, what you're going to find is it's not going to be on our traditional ISMAX lookup site. You're going to have to find it elsewhere. And when you do, you can scroll down and you can look at the different brackets for the different letter prefixes for the machines that were manufactured in the Quebec, Canada area. And that way you'll know that you're on the right page. And I can tell you that there were a number of different for the Canadian machines. Juliet David, like machine we're looking at right now, but there also was JA, JB, JC, and JE as well. So make sure you look at those letters carefully. Once you find the appropriate location, give you a big hint that that summary that is most prominent for these serial number breakouts is going to be on a website that comes out of Britain area. So you'll know you're on the right page when you see that header on there as well. Yeah, and Alex out of California, my friend Alex is absolutely correct. The building cost for that factory, which would have been back in around 1904. 1904 is the year that the factory opened in the St. John, Quebec, Canada area for Singer. And back in 1904, if someone wants of what would $1 million be today, that would have been back in 1904. It's got to be a huge amount, right? It's got to be a huge amount. So $1 million to build it back in 1904, what would that be the equivalent of today? I'm just curious if anyone knows that. Also, I'm going to look at the chat and see if anyone got the closing date for the factory as well. Yeah, and Emma shared some more information, and she's spot on. 1904 was the factory was opened, and they do say that it probably closed down right around 1986. Right around 1986. So again, if anyone wants to share what $1 million today would be worth in relation to back in the early 1900s, I'd be curious to know that, because I did not do that lookup, and it gives you an idea of, $1 million today to build a facility of that size is peanuts. But back then, $1 million went a long way. So I'd be curious if anyone knows what $1 million from back in 1904 would be equivalent to today. 30. Alex looked it up, and if someone would, Alex is very, very smart. But if someone wants to just fact check him, like I say, like Ronald Reagan, we trust, we verify. So if someone else wants to verify Alex's numbers, but Alex is saying right around $34 million. And actually, Emma already fact checked it, agreeing with Alex. So Alex and Emma are telling us that if they were to try to build that factory today, for the same amount, they'd be spending about 34 times more than they did back in 1904. And they wouldn't be able to come close to building that factory today. There's just no way, with the cost of materials in the building industry, supply demand. I can't even imagine what it would cost them to build that factory now. Maybe 300 or 400 million dollars would be closer to the mark. Maybe 10 times the amount that Emma and Alex posted as the equivalent investment today for the original cost of building it. That's a chunk of change. That's a chunk of change. Okay, so let me ask if anyone in the live chat, would be willing to add these additional brackets as a resource to folks that will watch this live stream later as a video. Would someone please add these brackets for serial number lookup as well for these Canadian machines? I mentioned the other bracket letters, one of them being JA, Juliet Adam. Juliet Adam. JA has a bracket of 1924 to 1936. So some of those machines that would have been made in the Canadian production facility would have been stamped with a letter prefix serial number of JA, and JA is again 1924 to 1936. After that is JB, Juliet Bravo, Juliet Bravo. And Juliet Bravo letter prefix serial numbers are going to be from 1936 to 1948. 1936 to 1948. The letter prefix after that is going to be JC, Juliet Charlie, and that's going to be a bracket date pattern of 1948 to 1954. 1948 to 1954. And then our, our bracket for Nestor's machine is JD, Juliet David, and that's to 1961. 1961. And then the final bracket is going to be Juliet Echo, JE, and that bracket is going to run from approximately 1961 until that factory closed around 1986. And so those are the brackets. And I'll just state them again real quick. JA is 1924 to 1936. JB is 1936 to 1948. JC is 1948 to 1994. JD is 1954 to 1961. And then finally, JE is going to be 1961. And some of the sites where they reposted these, they're going to have a question mark, like they're not really sure about the ending production date for the letter prefix Juliet Echo, JE. But I'm going to go with the closing of the factory right around 1986. And if someone wants to do some additional research, I'm willing to concede other possibilities. So those are the brackets. And happen to have a 185J or a 185K or maybe one of the other Canadian-made machines, these brackets hopefully will be a helpful resource. And right away, as you look at that letter prefix, kind of like we do with the vintage Swedish beauties, that are class 20 and class 21 machines. I've got that secret summary of letter prefixes with production dates that Hans from Norway got me. I don't know where he got it, but it was apparently a very, very well protected secret. And so, that's what I use when I have Swedish beauties in the workshop to date that machine. And again, I don't have a day or a month, but I do have the year as far as the Swedish beauties, similar to here. But here you've got more of a choice where, like Emma, you can pick the year that you want, not knowing absolutely sure what year that machine was made, but having a bracket of years. So, all right, just seeing if there's anything else I want to share. And the other thing I'll share with you as well is that some of the machines that came out of Canada uh, did not receive their serial numbers in Canada. The serial numbers were assigned by the Singer Big Shots in Elizabethport, New Jersey. And so Elizabethport, New Jersey would send those serial plates or the serial numbers to be assigned to those machines, and then they were marked accordingly. So that was not a decision that was executed for the most part in Canada. It came from America around Elizabethport, New Jersey plant, and then it was passed up to the Canadians as far as adding those appropriate serial numbers to those machines. And that was until, I'm just looking at my notes, that was until around 1924. Until around 1924. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share. I'm just looking at my notes again to be absolutely sure. I wish we could post pictures in the live chat. I wish we could post pictures in the live chat because there are pictures of this St. John's, Quebec, Canada Singer plant. It is absolutely huge. And it gives you an idea of how far $1 million went back in 1904 when you look at the scope of this facility that would have been in that neck of the woods. And I don't know, I have no idea if any of it is still standing. You remember when I took all of you to Indiana and we were doing that fundraiser to help out the History Museum. I shot video out at the original Singer cabinet plant that's right in the heart of South Bend, Indiana. And a number of those buildings were still standing. They were a little bit unsafe, but if you remember, I was able to sneak in with the permission of the building custodian, and we actually walked the same floor in the same hall that those incredible cabinets that were made by the Singer production place in South Bend, Indiana, were manufactured. They made almost 10,000 a day, if you can imagine how that's even possible. And I believe that their campus was around 50 acres, but they were producing about 10,000 cabinets, and not basic cabinets. These were ornamental masterpieces of cabinets that were being made for Singer. And oftentimes they had the sewing machines right there at the cabinet factory, and they would install the sewing machines in those beautiful cabinets, and then they would ship them all around the world. At one point, that cabinet factory in South Bend, Indiana, was actually supplying about 75% of the sewing cabinets around the world. So it gives you an idea of the scope of their operation. And if you don't remember that or don't remember seeing that, go to the playlist where it's talking about that fundraiser we did, where we raised almost $12,000 right in the thick of the pandemic to help them out. And then I shot that video inside of the building, outside of the building. And then we also did a wonderful closing ceremony with our friends down at the History Museum as well. And I also shot some video as well of some really cool sewing related artifacts that they specially laid out for us so that we could share it with the Cow Country family. So all of that is underneath that playlist associated with that fundraiser, and you'll want to check it out. I think it's utterly fascinating. that we as a family, because when I do things, I don't do it for myself. I don't do it by myself. We do it together. So we had a chance to see something that most people never, ever, ever, ever will see, and that is to be inside of that cabinet factory that would have produced about 2 million cabinets a year, 10,000 cabinets a day. And I think my camera ended up dying, but we were able to capture some of that before it died, and just check that out. It was so cool, so cool to be there and breathe that in. I hope I didn't catch anything, but it was cool to breathe it in nonetheless. Yeah. So anyway, back on track with our focus today, and that again is highlighting this great machine that we're going to put in 1954 in relation to that bracket. And also, let me look real quick the live chat and just see if there's any other greetings, quick good mornings that I can say. I don't want anyone to feel left out, even though I know the leaders and others are taking care of them. I still want to say a quick hello if I can do that, and then we'll jump into this. And if you probably noticed right away, Dr. Singer is here, and also our Canadian representative, our Canadian Mountie, because of our roots of the Singer and our roots of the Canadian factory that would have had a hand in producing Nestor's machine. So I'm going to move our friends out of the way so that I don't end up bumping them, and then we'll get rolling with this real quick, very, very shortly. Goodness, I took the captain out. Sorry about that. Also, I'm going to start to, I'll leave it like this for right now, then we can kind of walk around the machine as well. All right, quick greeting, good morning. Let's see here. I think I've covered everybody so far. Yeah, I don't see anybody new in the live chat, at least, that I did not say good morning to. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. I'll walk you around this machine a little bit, and we'll talk about the setup on this machine, and then we're going to launch into some sew-offs with this. And I know I asked the question, but I don't know if anyone answered. Let me ask it again, and if you would be so kind, if you already answered this, go ahead and post your answer in the live chat again. But I asked about this 185J and the 185K, about the engine, the motor on these machines. We know that most of the Singer machines, like the similar machines to this, that would be 3/4 size, and this is a 3/4 size machine if you can't tell that in the shot. Most of these 3/4 size machines, like the 99s, the 99Ks, would have come with a standard rear mounted 0.54 amp motor. The only exception to that in the 3/4 size class that are almost a mirror image of the 99s and the 99Ks is the 192K, which most of you know is commonly referred to as the Spartan. The 192K Spartan comes with exactly the same size motor as the 185J and the 185K, if that gives you a big clue. So that's the size motor on this machine. Let me see if anyone types it into the live chat and nails it straight away, because we are going to be dealing with a motor that's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing on the 99s, the 99Ks, and some of the other 3/4 size machines that would have been manufactured in the same time period. And Yali, remind me if you'd be so kind. Yali is from outside of the U.S., if I remember correctly. Yali typed in 0.75. Really, really close. Really, really close. And I think Yali might be from Sweden. Am I correct? I don't remember. But Yali put 0.75. Emma, the sister to Nestor that this machine was exclusively prepared for, put down 0.8. So any other guesses before I confirm what size engine is on this machine? Oh, Yali lives in the U.S. My mistake. My mistake. Yali is in the U.S. So Emma would have nailed it, or Emma did nail it, I should say. The size engine on this 185J, the same is true of the 185K, and the same is true of the 192K, which is commonly known to as the Spartan. Those three machines, the two machines from Canada and the other machine that would have come out of the UK by way of Scotland, all three of those machines have a zero point 0.8 amp motor. Now, to put it into perspective, a zero point 0.8 amp motor is going to be bigger than the amperage on a 201-2. It's going to be bigger than the amperage on a 1591 Singer. It's going to be bigger than any of these Slant-O-Matic machines, with the exception of the 401A that comes with a comes with a 0.9 amp motor. So 0.8 amps is a lot of engine, a lot of motor to drive this 3/4 size machine. And I think you'll see that as we go through some of these sew-offs today. It's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of get up and go. And I think that's part of the reason that some people will steer away, or at least steer towards the 192K, the Spartan, because they've got more power with the same scale machine, 3/4 size machine, compared to a standard 99 or a 99K. So, yeah, it's almost like putting a racing transmission on some of the classic cars and kind of beefing up that motor or adding some nitrous to it. This is a Canadian nitrous driven powerhouse of a machine with that 0.8 amp motor on it. So a lot of power, a lot of power. All right, give me one moment here. I'm going to do one other thing. I heard a notification come in. Let me just check something really quick. Just talk among yourselves for a moment, if you would, and I'll be right with you. Be right with you in just a moment. I wish I had like elevator music to play or something like that while I was checking this real quick before we launch into this. Sorry about that. It won't take long. Well, I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. And again, it's always a privilege. It's always a privilege and an honor to have you take time out of a busy weekend, especially a Saturday morning, and join us for live streams. And today is a particularly special live stream because of it being associated with Emma's brother. Emma's been a part of the leadership team for a very long time, and it's great to be able to prepare this machine for her brother out in Maryland. And I've never met him. I've never met Nestor, but I'm sure he's a good guy and he's going to have a lot of fun with this machine. And maybe if Emma didn't already share, maybe Emma can share what type of sewing he's likely to be doing on this machine. I'm going to be demonstrating not a wide scope of sewing on it today. We're going to try some denim. We're going to do cotton, obviously, and we're going to do some leather as well. But I'd just be curious what type of sewing Nestor is likely to be doing. Just about one more minute, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, done. Thank you for your patience. As I had to respond to something that was time sensitive. So sorry about that. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So a quick walk around this 185J. It's a fairly straightforward machine to navigate, I think. We'll start all the way on the right side. And also, I'll share with you, you can see the bobbin winding tire here is kind of a light celery color. Emma had sourced a couple of extra things to send to me at the workshop that I could add to Nestor's machine to get it ready for the live stream and then to ultimately get it shipped out to Maryland. And this was the bobbin winding tire that Emma came up with that I thought was pretty doggone cool in color. But when we looked at it on the machine in relation to this other one, we both agreed that it just didn't quite fit. it didn't quite fit the celery theme that the Canadians had come up with. And so we decided to put this one to the side and go with this one that was the original one on the machine. It's got a couple little, imperfections on it, but it's still in excellent condition. And it works really, really well for winding a bobbin. In fact, we might try winding a bobbin on this machine today just to demonstrate how to do that. And then I'll go ahead and rethread the machine, or maybe I'll add a second spool and we'll do it anyway. But when you're going to wind a bobbin, you're going to disengage the clutch over here. You're then going to engage this by just rotating this down, similar to the Slant-O-Matic machines. There's no kickback spring. There's no complex assembly. It's just rotating it down and making contact with the rim of the balance wheel. And then when you're threading it, you're going to come off the top through this thread guide here, adjacent to the faceplate, and then come across the machine down through this thread guide, and you're going to kind of come across this bottom edge. You can see that little slat. You bring the thread through there, and then you bring the thread around the back through this upper slat, and then bring it up to the bobbin in order to wind it. So those are kind of the steps that you're going to take, if you will, to wind a bobbin. And then when you're done, you manually have to rotate this away from the rim of the balance wheel so that it's not adding that extra drag on there. And this is the original bulb as well. Emma also supplied a real nice LED bulb for her brother's machine as well. This is the original bulb that would have been in the machine when it left Canada back in the day. Kind of a cool looking bulb, I think. Almost like the kind you'll see in the slapstick comedy routines, or I think on the Addams Family, Uncle Fester. Remember Uncle Fester on the Addams Family? If you watched that kind of a program when you were growing up or whatever, Uncle Fester on the Addams Family, I think it was, that would put a light bulb similar to this in his mouth, and he would make it light up, supposedly similar to this. Obviously a bigger scale one, but similar to that. So, and then over here we've got kind of a split display of stitch length. It goes back and forth from left to right to right to left, all the way up like this, bouncing back and forth. And you can see our longest stitch we're going to get from this 185J is going to be right around 6 stitches per inch, all the way down to 30 stitches per inch when you get up here. And then as you move this up, you're going to be sewing in reverse when you get up to this point right up here. And the 185J does not have an accurate staging reverse. In other words, you can't scale it. When you go in reverse, there's going to be a certain preset stitch length. It's not like some of the other machines that I've shown on this channel, like the domestic rotaries and some of the others, that within that range of reverse, you're able to actually get a different scale length of that stitch length. So just be aware of that, that it's going to be a set. I want to say it's going to be close to 10 stitches per inch when you're sewing in reverse. But for most of our sewing today, we're going to be sewing close to the longest stitch scale, which is right around 6 stitches per inch, right around in that range. So what else? Let's see here. This is that chiseled look that I really like. That chiseled look of the arm of the machine jetting off of the pillar, reaching towards the faceplate. And then you can see right up here, it's proudly stamped, made in Canada, made in Canada. The Singer Sewing Machine Factory Company, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Let's look at the threading real quick. I'm going to rotate this a little bit and we'll look at the threading. So coming off the top, and the thread I'm using today is 100% cotton. It's 100% cotton. So we're going to be laying down our stitching with this Americana quilting thread. It's designed as a quilting thread, and it's 100% cotton. And I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to thread types. Maybe we need to have working with Jenny, who is our ambassador to needles. Jenny is our ambassador for needles. Maybe we need to also look at having an ambassador for threads to make us smarter on threads, because I know what cotton thread is. I know what cotton thread is, but I don't know what glaced, Glaced. Does anyone know what glaced cotton thread is? What is it? Glaced. If someone could share with us what glaced cotton thread is, it says 100% glaced cotton thread by Americana. I got no idea what glaced means. I know what a glazed ham is, and now I'm getting hungry, but I have no idea what glaced means. So any of you that are really knowledgeable or super smart about thread, and maybe you can let the leadership team know, hey, I know a lot about threads. I am like incredibly smart on threads. Well, if you are, then why don't you consider becoming our ambassador for threads? Let the leadership team know that you want to do that. They'll let me know, and then we'll go ahead and have like a special ceremony or acknowledgement of your new role. And then you can work collaboratively with Jenny to make us smart on needles and thread. And a great website for this, if you didn't know about it, is called the threadexchange.com. If someone wants to type that into the live chat as a resource to anyone that views this later as a video or now, the threadexchange.com is incredibly well informed, and a lot of great content making people smarter on threads, needles, and everything else. So, Jenny and others should check it out as well. And that way they can bring back more information to us about those two topic areas that I certainly have room to learn in. I've got a lot of opportunity to learn in that. But yeah, I'll be curious what you come up with as far as what glaced cotton thread is. Got no idea, but that's what we're using today. So we come off here, and you always notice that cotton thread has a tendency to kind of want to curl, especially in a humid environment like here. Kind of curls and it does weird stuff. You can see that little bow. Well, we come through this thread guide. with your presser foot lever in the up position, draw that thread through the tension discs and then through your take-up spring right there. Hopefully you can see that. There's our take-up spring. Draw that through your take-up spring. The other thing I'm going to tell you real quick, and it's really, really important to know this. It's incredibly important to know this. If you're ambitious as a sewist and you like to do maintenance on your machines, and one of the things I talk about all the time is it's really important not to just swab between the tension discs, but to disassemble that upper tension and to do a thorough cleaning of it, as I did on Nestor's machine. When you reassemble that upper tension, you need to orientate your center point and your take-up spring so that your take-up spring, when it doesn't have tension on it, is going to be right about at the 11 o'clock position in its resting position right now. You need to have that range of motion from the 11 o'clock position downward in order to have proper stitch balance from a tension standpoint. Otherwise, you'll be battling it left and right. You'll be battling it left and right, trying to get a balance where you'll either have a looser looking top stitch or you'll be battling that lock stitch on the bottom to get a nice defined lock stitch. So make sure if you take this apart, you reassemble it, get your true center point, like you see right there, get your center point, and make sure that that take-up spring at a resting point is at the 11 o'clock position. If it's set lower than that, you're going to have issues with maintaining stitch tension on that lock stitch, and you're going to be battling it. If you set it too high, you're going to have issues with breaking thread. So make sure you get it set on that sweet spot right about 11 o'clock, and you'll have a very happy 185J or 185K. Okay? So we go through there, we go through that take-up spring right there. We're then going to come underneath this thread guide right here. Don't go through the hole. Don't go through the hole on here. Go underneath it. Go up to your take-up arm. Thread your take-up arm from right to left. Then you're going to have two thread guides on the face, one right there and one right there. And then finally, when you get down to your needle, you're going to thread the needle. We're used to always threading Singer sewing machines from right to left. This one needs to get threaded from left to right. You're going to be threading this machine from left to right. And then the flat side of the needle that also has the scarf as well. And if you don't know what a scarf is, I believe Jenny is in the live chat. Reach out to our ambassador for needles and say, Jenny, can you explain why is there a scarf on the needle? What is a scarf? And I'm sure Jenny will be willing to share her knowledge on that part of the anatomy of the needle and why it's so absolutely critical that you orientate that scarf properly. So the flat side is going to be on the right when you insert the needle into the socket, and then you thread the needle from left to right. So make sure you get that right. Make sure you get that correct. Yeah. What else? What else? Presser foot pressure right here. Just turn it clockwise if you want more for multiple layers, heavier materials. Turn it counterclockwise if you want to lessen that presser foot pressure. Also, this machine has a great spotlight style light. I'll try to show it to you underneath here. I'll shut it off. This is also on a number of the 99, 99Ks and 190. No, I stand corrected. I was going to say 192Ks, but the 192Ks, the Spartans coming out of the factory, did not have lights on them originally. But some people will add either a spoon style light or sometimes they'll try to add a spotlight to the Spartans. But the spotlights are really cool because they direct that light through this magnifying lens right there down to the needle and to the bed area. So you can see we have it on now, and with that LED bulb that Emma supplied for her brother's machine, puts out some really nice light. Much, much better than that original bulb over here. This was pull out the auxiliary lights because otherwise you're going to go blind. Really is. What else? And to service this machine, it's a little bit more tricky to service it because you have to take the bottom off. This bottom right here is a shell that gives this machine balance and keeps it level. The machine can, if you didn't know it, the 185J and 185K, they can freestand. They can freestand, but when they're sitting like this. They're sitting like this with the right side of the machine setting lower than the other side. So if you didn't want to use one of these bases, or most commonly, if your base got busted and you don't have access to it any longer, you could use some of those sliders like I've shown you in other live streams. Hold on a second. You can use some of these underneath the pedestal feet on the right side of the 185J or 185K. There's two pedestal feet. You'll put one under one under the other, and then it'll even this machine out beautifully without being in a base. A lot of these bases, because they're plastic, will get cracked, get damaged. And I even told Emma when this goes out to her brother in Maryland, I'm going to have to separate the machine, which is pretty doggone heavy, to the base, because even if I pack it really, really well, the heaviness of the machine is going to be bouncing and pressing against this plastic base, and it's very likely that it's going to get damaged. So I will ship the two separately, or apart from each other, I should say. I'll separate them and put them in the same tote. And that way this machine is freestanding in a cocoon. This is in a cocoon, the base. And then all Nestor has to do out there is marry the two together and put on a little wing nut to join the two together to give it a solid sewing surface. But in lieu of that, if you come across a 185 or a 185 J or K, you can pick these up at Walmart or any retail center. They're designed to put underneath the feet of furniture so you can slide it across a wood floor without scratching the floor. But these also work incredibly well for leveling out a machine when you don't have the benefit of a base like this one. Just keep that in mind so that you can put a machine into use even if you don't have everything that it needed originally, if that makes sense. And the needle I've got in here real quick, I'll just share this before I forget. The needle I have in here today is not a harpoon needle, but it is a 9014 Schmetz leather needle, because I plan on sewing a fair amount of leather today. So this is the needle that's in Nestor's machine today. And I'll get feedback from Emma before the machine is actually shipped. I'm guessing that Emma will ask me to swap out this leather needle for a universal needle, which I'll be happy to do for Nestor. And that way Nestor will be all set to sew a fairly wide scope of machines, a wide field of machines without ever having to, I better slow down, without ever having to change out the needle, at least initially. Okay. Well, I hope some of that blah, 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 that information is helpful. I like to equip all of you with information so that you're more knowledgeable as students, and then as fellow teachers, you take information to your circles of influence and you share it generously with others to make them smarter on machines as well. So with that, I'm going to officially turn this over to the leadership team. I should be saluting with my right hand, so forgive me for that. Leaders are in charge now. Take care of the family. And let's see if we can put this machine to work. Okay? Let's see if we can put this machine to work. Oh, I'll show you the foot controller as well. Foot controller is going to be very similar to the Spartan. And it's a very easy to operate foot controller. Very easy to operate. And it doesn't specifically, interestingly, it does not have a stamp on here like most Singer foot controllers have that tell you the amperage tolerance. Most of them are going to say, like our traditional Bakelite ones, what are our traditional Bakelite foot controllers that are used with so many of the Singer sewing machines? What is their amperage tolerance? What are they rated at? What are those foot controllers that are used on many of the Singer machines? What is that foot controller rated at in relation to this one, obviously being rated at 0.8 or above, because it always has to be rated equal to, or better yet, rated higher than the engine. And we know this has a 0.8 amp engine or motor on the back of it. So even though Singer, for whatever reason, decided not to stamp this foot controller with 0.8 or 0.9, we're going to trust that Singer is smart, which they were, and that this is rated properly in relation to the motor. Okay? We're going to trust that it is. And I did do some test sewing already on Nestor's machine. I'll show you some of the sew offs I did. I was goofing around with some cotton and had to make the top stitch looks pretty good on this. But because I had not fine-tuned that take-up spring yet, the take-up spring initially, this spring right here, was set lower. It was at about the 9 o'clock position, between 9 to 10 o'clock position. Even though I was making adjustments on the bobbin case in this machine, look at what I was getting for a lock stitch, especially over here. And then as I made fine-tune adjustments on that take-up spring, and also made adjustments on the bobbin case as well, we started to zero in on that lock stitch and get it into proper tension alignment with the top stitch. But again, I can't emphasize enough how important getting that check spring or that take-up spring as close to that 11 o'clock position as possible. It really is super critical. Super, super critical. I also did some test sewing on some protected full grain leather as well, a single layer, and then I added a second layer to it as well. Some beautiful stitching. Very, very nice page 34 stitching. And again, we're talking about from the side, if you look at it, probably right around about 8 ounces of leather. Look at it right there. And again, protected full grain leather like this has that chemical coating on it to keep it from getting stained. And that makes that piercing threshold even higher. So the fact that Nestor's machine, without any difficulty, went through 2 layers of protected full grain leather, that speaks to that bigger engine, that bigger motor, and certainly my efforts to optimize this machine, where if Nestor decides he wants to sew heavier duty, this little 3/4 size 185J is going to be able to get the job done very, very nicely. Then I also goofed around with some saddle grade leather as well. I showed this to Emma last night, and I think she used an emoji like a drooling person saying page 34 plus. It really is quite a spectacular stitch quality. But we do have the benefit of a leather needle, right? We've got the benefit of a leather needle, so that helps. That does help us as well. And you can see here as well, I had to do a little bit of adjustments. The lock stitch was good, but we can always make things better. So I made some additional adjustments. And then by the time I got to the final stitch column number 3, I had a really, really nice balance between that top stitch and that lock stitch. And if you're brand new to sewing, you're saying, well, what is the secret? Because you'll see a lot of people posting about that on the internet. They're posting all the time about trying to tell people how to fix their tension issues. It's like a tension pandemic or something. Apparently everyone struggles with tension, and most people don't understand it like all of you do. They don't get it. If they're having issues with the lock stitch, they start making adjustments to the bobbin case because it's closest in proximity. That's exactly the wrong thing to do, because the lock stitch is controlled by the upper tension assembly, not by the bobbin case. Or if they're having issues with an underdefined top stitch, what's closest to the top stitch? The upper tension. They start goofing around with this and they make it worse. So just understand, when it comes to tension 101, tension 101 is if your lock stitch is underserved, then bump up your upper tension. If your top stitch is underserved, then bump down your upper tension. And if you can't get enough of an impact by adjusting your upper tension either way, then you might have to go to your bobbin case. And don't be fearful of doing that. I've shown you that. I've talked about it, and you're very capable to do that. Very, very capable. Very, very capable. Does anyone know what kind of bobbin this 185J and the 185K take? What kind of bobbin is in this machine? I'll show it to you. That'll give you a big clue, I think. Also, it's got this fun little ejector. You can push this and you can pop the bobbin up to remove it. What kind of bobbin is that? What kind of bobbin does the 185J, the 185K, the Spartan, and a long list of other Singer sewing machines, what kind of bobbin is that inside of there? Yeah, class 66. I see that Emma typed in 66. It is a class 66. And again, a class 66 is going to be used in a wide variety of different Singer sewing machines. A wide variety of Singer sewing machines. So if you've got several Singers in your collection, you'll want to have extra class 66 bobbins, preferably original ones and not remakes. Some of the manufacturers that are making remake bobbins, they don't always get them to scale. They might be a thousandth of an inch off, but it will create problems for you as you're trying to run them in your machine. So try to go original whenever you can. They were much more particular about the trueness of getting the specs right every time than a lot of the more contemporary manufacturers are. Yeah, you can certainly use a first generation 66 bobbin. Jenny's right. And the first 66 generation bobbin would have versus 4 holes. But on this machine as well, since it's from the 1950s going into the 1960s, this is a little bit later vintage machine when it's in the 50s. You can certainly get away with using a bobbin like this one that has the 4 holes, but either one will serve you real well. Either one will serve you well in this particular machine. So does anyone want to see the winding of a bobbin on this machine? We can do that before we launch into sewing if you'd like. Otherwise, I described how you set it up to sew or how you set it up to sew and how to set it up for bobbin winding. And if that's sufficient, then we can just stick with moving forward into the sewing process. So let me just get some input, particularly from Emma. Emma is, again, the sister to Nestor that this machine is going to be heading towards in Maryland. So if Emma wants to see bobbin winding, I'll probably lean her direction and go ahead and demonstrate it real quick for you before we launch into official sewing on the machine. And Emma is saying yes, so we're going to do that. We'll go ahead and do that. I'll try to turn the machine just a little bit easily. I'm going to take our thread off temporarily. And I'm going to go grab another spool of and I think I'll wind a bobbin. I'll wind this this third bobbin instead of with cotton. I'll wind it with 100% polyester. That way Nestor has a choice of polyester or cotton thread, depending on what he prefers to use. So for bobbin winding on this 185J, pretty straightforward. And if you're looking at this machine right now and you didn't say it out loud or didn't type it in the live chat, if you're saying something like, oh my gosh, that is such a gorgeous, sexy, chiseled, buffed sewing machine, I am totally in agreement with you. I'm just looking at the side of the machine right now as I looked over my shoulder at the laptop, and I just think that this is probably one of the pretty machines because of the color and because of the machine. I just think it's gorgeous. So we'll put our here. Again, I'm going to come through this thread guide right here. Then I'm going to come across the machine. I've got to remember to reach over here by my balance wheel and disengage the clutch. See if we can get us a little bit closer to it as well. There we go. So I'm kind of coming from here to here, coming across the machine, and then I'm going to be going through the lower part of this thread guide right here, then coming around through the top. You see how I did that? Let me do that again. So I'm coming from here, I'm coming through the bottom, coming around the back, coming through there, and then we go from there straight up to the bobbin. So let me grab my empty bobbin, slide that right on here, and on this particular mount for the bobbin winder on this 185J, there's not a little pin. There's not a little pin that you have to slide the bobbin into like on a lot of the Singer machines. This is going to have a little flare to it. This mounting point here is going to have a little flare to it, and it's going to create natural tension on this bobbin when you slide it on. If you have a machine similar to this and when you put the bobbin on, it's not tight and it has a tendency to slip, what you can do, I'll just show you real quick. I won't actually do it, but I'll show you how to do it. What you can do real quick is with a lot of gentleness, you'll get a wide end screwdriver like this and a mallet similar to this, not a hammer, a mallet. And then what you'll do is you'll find that opening. And if the first one you get is a little bit too wide, if it's a little bit too wide like this one is, then get a screwdriver that has a thinner tip on it so you can fit it into that little flare point, and then just give it very, very gentle taps like that until you feel that the screwdriver is just very slightly, maybe a millimeter or approximately a millimeter, it's sliding into that little flare point, that little opening, and it's causing it to open up a little bit more. That will then create enough tension that your bobbins will no longer slip. But just do it with a great deal of gentleness. And if you've got somebody that can help you do it, when you're putting that screwdriver against here and tapping it, you want somebody to kind of absorb the shock and hold it from this edge so that you can support this so that it doesn't potentially get damaged or cracked. But that's the easiest way to do it, is just gently tap it with a mallet to flare that open a little bit more, and then your bobbin will attach without slipping any longer. So just keep that in mind from a standpoint of winding. But again, do it very, very gently. Very, very gently. It's a process of patience, not expediency. So then I'm coming up here. I'm going to go ahead and wind that bobbin. I always forget when I'm doing the initial thread wrap if I wrap it towards me or away from me. I usually do it the wrong way, but that's okay. So I'm just wrapping around the bobbin several times. Give myself enough to hang on to, hopefully. Then I'm going to remember to rotate this down against the rim of the balance wheel, like so. And don't press it in super hard. You only need to make contact with that rubber bobbin winding tire and the rim. It doesn't have to be pressed into there super hard. Otherwise, you're not going to get much winding speed. You're going to be sitting there getting all crazy saying, why is it taking forever for that to wind? Okay, and then I'm going to give it let me see if I can rotate this a little bit more. There we go. And you might want to, depending, because this 0.8 amp motor, it's downright serious about winding. It's not going to goof around. So you want to make sure that you maybe keep a hand up here so that this thing doesn't, as it's done for me a couple times, just hop off. Just shoo. You have to chase it across the room almost. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a boost. See if we can get her winding, and then we'll just kind of let her go. Oops. Ha ha! I tried to be so careful, and it ended up winding past the bobbin itself. That happens sometimes. Hold on a second. Oh, you got to love live streams. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. There we go. There we go. All right, now let me tidy this up a little bit. I did this last night, and it was absolutely flawless. Dr. Singer was actually clapping for me. And now I'm doing it on the live stream, and it's like, we're going to give you a little bit of trouble here, buddy. Let me give you a little bit of trouble. All right, so let's get this back in there again properly. All right, take two. Let's see if we can get it this time, hopefully. Now, the other thing I'll show you real quick is there is an adjustment down here as well. There is an adjustment down here as well. As I'm winding this, it seems to be distributing the thread evenly. In other words, as the thread is moving back and forth through this tensioner down here, it's distributing that thread evenly across the bobbin. You don't want to have one side higher than the other. You want to have it even across. But if it is uneven as it's starting to wind and you're getting a heavier concentration on the left, then you want to loosen the screw on here and just move this slightly to the right. If you're getting a higher concentration of the thread that's going on the right side of the bobbin as you're winding it, then you want to loosen that screw and move this tensioner just slightly to the left. So just move it away from the area that you don't want it to be emphasized on as much, and you should be able to get a good balance. So let's continue winding this and keep my hand up here a little bit. I'm only, right now, the gas I'm giving to this 185J, it's like that much. It's like that much. And remember, this is not going to have an auto disengagement. It's not going to automatically disengage like a lot of the Singer machines. You got to monitor how full you're getting that so you don't overfill it. And that's probably pretty good right there. So that's how you wind a bobbin on this 185J. And I saw that there was a message that came in from Emma about the weight of this machine. Let me take this thread off and get it set back up to sew, and then I'll get out my little scale. Although my little scale was like really wonky the last time I tried to use it, so we may have to skip that. But as you look at this, let me just clip the thread real quick. You can see right now we've got it calibrated spot on. So right now we're getting a real nice even distribution of that thread on the bobbin. It's even all the way across instead of being like, like a real high point, real low point, real high point. It's generally very, very nicely balanced right now. So this will operate in the machine very, very nicely. And speaking of operating the machine, when you drop this in, you're going to want to have the thread over the top like this, so that as it's turning and dispensing in the sewing process, it's going to be turning counterclockwise in the machine like this. I forgot to mention that as far as the setup of the machine. So it drops in right over here. And then when you draw this thread up to go into the the tension area where the band is on the bobbin case. You draw it up to the 12 o'clock position to slide it in there, and then go ahead and draw the thread up like you normally would. This is going to go ahead and be turning counterclockwise in the sewing process. Okay. Good. Okay. Let me set that over there. Take this off. Get our thread back up through the tension discs. Our thread back up over here. Make sure we don't forget that thread guide up there. Also, remember you disengage this as well, so that it's not creating drag on the machine. Once you're done bobbin winding, just push it back up. And remember to re-engage your clutch as well. You re-engage your clutch by turning it to the rear. Hold the balance wheel and turn the clutch to the rear to lock it all the way into place. We'll see if we can get a weight on this machine. My best guess, being a lifter of machines quite often, all the time, I'm going to guess right around 32 pounds. Probably real close to 32 pounds, something like that. We'll see if that scale is cooperating today and we can get a weight on it. I'd like to eventually, and I'm not asking anybody to get me one. Please don't get me one. But I'd like to eventually get a digital scale. I think that would be kind of cool. So right now we're calibrated at 0. Hopefully you can see that. See if I can rotate this around and keep it calibrated. So we're still calibrated on 0. Now let's see if we can put that machine on there and get a weight. And again, when you're lifting a machine like this in a plastic base, I would recommend putting the brunt of the weight under the arm of the machine like this, and then just kind of guide it with the base when you're lifting it. Yeah, I'm doubtful. I don't think my scale is reliable, to be honest with you. I don't think my scale is reliable at all. It's coming in on my scale, but I think it's about 5 pounds off. Coming in right around 26 pounds. You can see that in the shot. But I think that my scale is probably, even though it's calibrated, I think it's probably as much as 5 pounds off. I'm going to have to replace this. These type of older scales work with springs. You probably know that. And I always talk about on springs on sewing machines, how they get stretched out over time and they lose their original form. And on a scale like this, it's going to throw off the accuracy of it. So it's saying around 26, almost 27 pounds. I'm guessing it's probably just a wee bit heavier than that. So probably just a wee bit heavier. And this also comes, I didn't show it in the shot, but this also comes with a cover as well for the carrying case. So this goes over the top. Obviously, you tuck all the wires in so that you can snap this down. And then this has portability for taking to quilting retreats or expos or anything like that. So, and it's got a real nice sturdy handle as far as anchoring points. You can see on this inside of here, it's got a metal bar. That's solid metal. A solid metal bar with 2 bolts that come through and then anchor to this bar. So unlike some of the handles that can give way and then all of a sudden you can have a horrible accident with a sewing machine. This one is built incredibly well on this 185J. I mean, you're talking about a metal bar with metal bolts attached to a very heavy gauge plastic style handle. So this one I would feel comfortable from the handle standpoint, but you always have to be watchful of these latch points on the machine as well, right here. So just be watchful of those. And if you're going to be carrying it any distance, what I would do is put a little bit of stretch wrap around there with this lid on and just make sure that it's anchored and it's not going to come loose. Okay, let's do some sewing on this machine. Why don't we try it? I don't think there's any other messages. Nope, no other messages right now. Okay, perfect. All right, let me move this closer. And we'll actually finally put this 185J to use. We covered some good stuff, though, on it, I think. And I can decide, based on what the camera's doing, if it's better to see things with the light on. Maybe with the light off, huh? Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of a glare with that spotlight coming down against this polished chrome surface here. Actually, I think that's a brushed chrome. Yeah, it's a brushed chrome because it's not high gloss. So let's start with our good old-fashioned cotton. Why don't we start with our cotton and then kind of go from there? We'll do a couple of different stitch lines on it. And again, these 185Js and Ks are going to be engineered just a little bit differently than some of the other Singer machines. I've had good launches with them with the take-up arm lower down and also with it higher up. So quite as critical on this machine as some of the other ones that will get a lot of mechanical binding when you try to launch with the take-up arm at a lower position. All right, let's see what we do. And again, we're going to be sewing cotton with a leather needle. Not a best practice, but we do it anyway just because the machine generally compensates for our lack of setup or less than ideal setup. All right, let's give it a go, see what happens. Angle that down a little bit more, get this a little bit closer. Yeah, that's a good angle, I think. All right, here we go. I'm really having to meter the power in this machine because of how strong that motor is. Really having to meter the power. And I would recommend it's, because we're threading this needle from left to right, when you're drawing your thread out, I would draw it at a slight angle to the right so that you're not putting unnecessary pressure or torque against that needle. If you ever watch your needle real carefully when you're drawing like the thread away to cut your thread off and stuff, if you ever look real carefully, you'll sometimes be flexing that needle quite a distance. And that can actually knock it out of alignment a little bit as far as clearing that throat plate. Over time, you can actually bend the needle. So always look at the orientation of the needle. If you're threading from left to right, you'll probably want to draw that material to the right. And I know that seems like common sense, but if we're anxious or if we're distracted or otherwise, we might draw it the opposite way and then cause damage to that needle without meaning to. And obviously, if you're threading from right to left, draw that material to the left so that you're going in the same natural direction as that needle will allow that thread to pass through without flexing the needle excessively. All right, let me do one stitch line of shorter stitching, and then we'll look at both of the stitches side by side. And again, we're sewing 100% cotton with a stiffener. And we're using a leather needle. I can only imagine the Schmetz people probably shake their heads sometimes with the setups that I come up with, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? So now I'm going to adjust my stitch length over here. Adjust my stitch length just slightly. We're down in 6 stitches per inch. Let's go up to about 12. So we're going to move this up. Oops, too far up. Move it up to about 12. And you can screw this in as well to lock it in place. You really don't need to. On most machines, it's going to stay in one place. But if you feel a notion to do it, just screw it in, and then it'll stay right at that set point that you selected. All right, so now we've shortened that stitch quite a bit. We'll see what we think of that one. And again, a lot of you know this already, so I don't mean to insult your intelligence, but I talked about adjusting tension. In the event you can't get the tension outcome that you want by adjusting the upper tension, up or down, to adjust the bobbin case, you open this slide plate to its furthest point right there. You'll feel that stop point because there's a little band across here that fits into the bottom of the plate, and you can only slide it so far. When you get to this point, it's going to stop. And then you take an appropriate size screwdriver, something similar to this. And the reason this little notch is here, right here, this notch serves two purposes. It allows you to drop the bobbin in, to thread the bobbin, and then to bring the thread through this little opening and close the plate when you're drawing that thread up. But it also is a perfect little spot for a screwdriver to fit in. And as you're looking at the side of the bobbin case, there's going to be two screws. There's going to be a larger screw on the left. That's going to be your adjustment screw. There's going to be a smaller screw on the right. That's going to be your set screw. The set screw holds on that tension band that the thread is underneath, so that that band is in a fixed position. The adjusting screw allows you to turn it either clockwise to increase the tension, which will give you greater definition on that top stitch, or it allows you to turn it counterclockwise to de-emphasize that top stitch and give more authority back to the lock stitch on the bottom. So that little screw on the left, the bigger screw on the left is going to be the one that if you want more definition on your top stitching, you're going to turn it clockwise. If this is overemphasized and you're flipping it over and looking at that lock stitch and going, my lock stitch doesn't look so great, and you've tried adjusting it up here already, then you're going to go ahead and turn this counterclockwise to give more authority back to that lock stitch. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And there is an additional step you can take that I won't get in depth in, but I will point at it and describe it to you. And if you want to check it out on your own, you can do that. Maybe I'll do a class on it sometime, just talking about setting one of these up when you're initially reassembling it after cleaning it. I've already talked about how important it is to get that take-up spring at the 11 o'clock position, like it is right now. If you look at it from straight on, you can see that take-up spring at a resting point is at the 11 o'clock position, that our center point right here is clearly defined. And you always want to, you'll see some people with machines where they try to reassemble it and their center point will be way to the left, way to the right. And it's just a little bit awkward looking, isn't it? So on this one, we've got a great center point. We've got a proper position for the take-up spring. And then beyond that, you want to understand that as you're reassembling this, the first thing to go on the mounting stem is going to be the pressure discs, the silver discs. You put the silver discs on first, Then after you put the silver discs on, you're going to put this center piece right here. Then the spring goes on, and then there's a small little piece that goes in front of the spring that matches up with the back of this that has little holes in it. But when you get to that point, you've got a decision to make. When you press this down, you press this portion down, which is being pushed back by that spring. How far do you turn this before you release this and then it snaps into position? That's called the pre-calibration of the upper tension. The pre-calibration of the upper tension is you can either have this turned several times before you allow that to snap into that little pin setting, and that will set the starting point of your tension in relation to that number, or you can have it lesser, and then you have to turn this to a higher number to get the same result. And I know it's easier if I were able to demonstrate it for you, but what I'm saying is there are decisions to make when you're reassembling this tension unit to pre-calibrate it so that you can get the same output of upper tension by setting it on 3 or 4, as someone else that doesn't pre-calibrate it has to turn this all the way up to 6 or 7 to get the same result, because of the way this little piece right here that has the numbers on it is basically, you're able to depress it, you're able to push it in, and then turn this either lesser or more. And then when you let this pop back out and you start to turn this, it will automatically pop into one of those holes and lock it in place. That's your pre-calibration. So if I've done a horrible job of explaining it, remind me, and I'll do a actual live stream talking about calibrating tensions and that, calibrating and adjusting the bobbin case as well. But you guys are really, really smart, and hopefully my explanation was sufficient in you understanding that you can make a choice as you're finally putting this last piece on right here, and you have this push down, because you've got to have this push down so this will turn, because this has a little pin that kind of snaps into there. So you're pushing this in, you're turning this. How far you turn it is your pre-calibration decision. If you turn it too far clockwise, you might not even be able to get to the highest number when you go to adjust this up. It'll stop you from going too far. That means you've calibrated it too high. And then you can simply turn it back, push this in, turn this counterclockwise a couple of turns, let this out, turn this, it pops into place, and then you've recalibrated your upper tension so you can get the full scale all the way up to 9. This will go all the way from 0 to 9. So don't calibrate it too high to maximize your upper tension. Otherwise, you're going to run into a problem with not being able to turn this all the way up to the highest setting that it can go. If that made even a little bit of sense, if that made even a little bit of sense, would you be so kind as to give me a thumbs up or a smiley face? But I want you all to know that, because I've seen people that are battling this and they've got their upper tension turned all the way up to 8 or 9, and they can't figure out why they have to turn it that high. And it's because they didn't go through that step of making a pre-calibration decision in relation to that spring, so that they can preset the starting point of that upper tension. So hopefully that makes some sense. Hopefully that helps. All right, so let's look at the stitching now. Okay, so first of all, let me just double check. First of all, our top stitching, this is our top stitching. That's some really good looking stitching. I always say stitching can be better, but this is really quite nice. Really quite nice. Very, very good looking stitching. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, exactly what we want to be seeing. We'll look at it like this as well. And again, we're doing this on 100% cotton, uh, using a leather needle, size 90/14 leather needle. Some really good looking top stitching. That means that our bobbin case is set appropriately. Our bobbin case is set appropriately in relation to that upper tension, and it's giving us a nicely defined top stitch, at least going through cotton with a stiffener. We turn it over, we'll see if we maintain good stitch tension balance on the lock stitch. And it looks like we have for sure. So the machine is set right now to do very, very well with 100% cotton. And again, the clarity of the stitch can always be improved, either with a different type of thread or with a more appropriately sized needle. But I think we're getting some really, really good, solid page 34 results on this machine that's been prepared for Emma's brother out in Maryland. So lock stitch and top stitch. And I'm seeing a little bit more of an emphasis on the top stitch. If you really scrutinize it carefully, and look at the stitch formation, the tracing points between each stitch, you'll see that the upper tension right now has a little bit more emphasis, which means if we wanted to fine tune it even further, we could either do one of two things. We could either bump up the upper tension slightly to take a little bit away from that emphasis, or we could go down to the bobbin case and we could turn that adjusting screw, the larger one on the left, we could turn it just a hair counterclockwise. But the balance is so close. The balance is so close that I probably wouldn't make any significant adjustment on it. But it does look like our upper tension right now is pulling just a little bit too hard, just a minuscule amount too hard. So I would call that a success with the cotton. So now we'll move on to something else. We got some denim and we've got some leather. I don't have a ton of sew-offs. But we're going to be going through, a fair number of things to put this machine to the test. A fair number. Give me just a moment. I've been talking nonstop for going on almost 2 hours. So let me get a quick drink of Diet Coke and just kind of take a deep breath, and then we'll resume. The sew-offs, and I'd like to get your input, if you would. I'd like to get your input on what we sew next, and particularly Emma, considering that Emma is the brother to the owner of this machine, the future owner of this machine. Yeah, get some input on what material she would like to see sew next for Nestor's machine. Yeah. Here, if you'd be so kind. These are our sew-off options. I'd like to save this for last, obviously, but this is elk hide, saddle grade leather, and denim. So I didn't do some of the other fun stuff this time. I don't know why. I was just maybe I was rushing a little bit too much. I was working on this machine rather late last night, as Emma knows, doing some final adjustments, fine tuning on it and stuff. So I didn't cut bubblegum material. I didn't cut some of the other materials that we sew off on sometimes. So if Emma, as the owner's sister, wants to see some other materials, I can certainly step away and cut some of that stuff real quick. But I think between the cotton the protected full grain leather, the denim, the elk hide, the saddle grade leather. We're going to get a very good feeling for what this 185J is capable of doing. I think we'll get a pretty good feeling for that. I'm still here. We didn't lose contact. We didn't lose contact. I've got some things that I'm managing today on top of the live stream that are a little bit time sensitive. So while I grabbed that drink of Diet Coke, I also wanted to provide a quick response to something that I needed to do. So again, thank you for your patience as I do that. Thank you for your patience. Okay, done. Thank you. Thank you for letting me do that real quick. Okay, so our sew offs are pretty much more leather because I've got a leather needle in there. I really want to emphasize that. We've got the denim. We've got this is a final sew off that I'll do with a little bit of music for fun. Um, Let me look at the live chat real quick and see if there's any specific input from Emma, being Nestor's sister, as to what she would like to see, maybe the rank order of what we have left to sew off, or if there's something beyond that that she would like me to put underneath the needle. I'm happy to step away for a second, cut that material, and then put it underneath the list of things that we can sew. I don't want to exclude anything that would be important to her to know that that machine can deliver on that. Obviously, it can, but we can certainly demonstrate it during this live stream. So, okay. So let me real quick look and see if there's any input. Denim for sure. Let's see, 100% cotton with a Schmetz. Let's see, page 34. Okay, so it looks like the owner's sister, our beloved Emma, says, "Yeah, that's good. It's lean and mean. It's not as big of a sew-off sandwich as we sometimes do, but I think that this will demonstrate the capabilities of Nestor's machine." So I'm going to move into the denim. That seemed to be a focal point of Emma. And this is denim. It's got a little bit of spandex in it, but it's not that awful stuff. Awful stuff that you can stretch almost like bubblegum material. This has, I think, just a little bit of spandex in it, but it's more of a traditional denim. So then the decision comes of I've got a 90-14 needle. In the past, we've sometimes run into issues with trying to go too thick on denim. If we're using a 90-14 needle, we have to go up to a size 100 or even a 110 as we're going through more layers of denim, especially if it has some spandex in it. So with that said, should we do, I think 2 layers would be an insult to this machine. Should we do 4 layers, or should we try 6 layers and then step it back if 6 layers is too much, not for the machine, but is too much for the needle that we're using? So I'm going to look at the live chat, see if we should go for. Emma's a go for the Gusto gal coming out of Brooklyn, New York, originally. If you didn't know that, Emma's originally from Brooklyn. from Brooklyn. So she's always a go-get-it type gal. So with that in mind, um, with that in mind, I'm guessing she's probably going to say, let's try 6. And if it's too much for this size needle we're using, then we can always bump it down to 4. But I'll tell you one thing, this Singer Canadian 185J, if we have the right needle, if we have the right setup, I could do 8 to 10 layers of denim on this machine without a hand start because of the power of that motor and because of the way the machine has been optimized and set up. And if you're curious about sending a machine to the workshop, I don't just service the machine, I also service the motor and the foot controller as well. The whole shebang, as my father would say, the whole shebang is optimized, the whole shebang. So let me look at the live chat, see what Emma is saying potentially as far as do we limit it to 4 layers or 6? Yep, as I suspected, Emma's saying, let's go for the 6. Let's go for the 6. Go for the 6. All right. I'm just going to cut off this little edge. It's like a seam edge. Kind of in the way a little bit. And these are the Guggenheim shears. Eventually, I'll be giving another pair of these away. A number of you in the audience right now have received a set of these already. If you haven't received a set yet, ask some of the folks that have already gotten a set what they think of them. They get an enthusiastic 2 thumbs up from me, that's for sure. Doesn't matter if you're sewing, if you're cutting through leather or anything else, it's going to get the job done very, very nicely. Let's see, light thread. So I'm going to put these back to back. And see if I can test my folding skills here. So that's 2 layers. That's going to be 4 layers. That's going to be 6 layers. So this is what 6 layers of denim with a little bit of spandex looks like. And again, I don't have any concern about this machine having the power to get through this. No concern whatsoever. But I do have a little bit of concern about the size of the needle in porting a large enough hole through all of these layers to allow us to be able to get a nice clean stitch balance as far as tension going through here. All right, let's give it a try though. Enough blah, blah, blah. Let's just give it a try and see what we get. If 6 is too much with a size 90-14 leather needle, then I'll step it down and we'll go to 4 layers. All right, here we go. Whoa! Did you see it hit that? I didn't give it enough gas. It hit those 6 layers of denim and it just stopped. The needle just stopped. That is some serious stuff. Some serious stuff. Yeah, and it looks like Emma's hunch was absolutely spot on. Emma's hunch was absolutely spot on. Did anyone notice? It looks like, I don't know what our average attendance has been today, but it looks like our friends have joined us again and our numbers are way up there. Let's see if we can get some of those folks maybe to join the live chat. Maybe they also can remember to like the live stream as well. That would be awesome. The leaders can reach out and maybe remind folks to like and to, yeah, we'd love you to join. If you're ready to join the live chat, that would be great. 464. Wow. That's kind of kooky crazy for such a niche space as ours, right? Such a niche space. All right, let me double check here. This is our top stitch. It's going to be a little bit hard to see, even though I went with the darker side of the denim. That's going to be a little bit hard to see. And also, I did not, and I should have, I did not bump up our presser foot pressure going through this much denim. I should have bumped it up because otherwise it's going to stubby. It's going to stubby the stitch, if that's a thing. It's going to make the stitch shorter than it normally would be. See if we can get a view of this. I can tell you on my end, it's a really good looking stitch. It's a little stubby, but very good looking stitch. I think maybe if I turn it vertical, it's going to be even easier to see. See if we can try it vertical, see if that helps us a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit easier to see that way. But again, the stitch length has been impacted by the feed factor and the number of layers that we're going through. So if you experience that as well, let's say you turn up your stitch length all the way to 6, like on this one, and you should be getting around 6 stitches per inch, but you're getting more stitches than that. In other words, the stitches are not as long as they're supposed to be. That's going to be a feed factor typically, and that means you need to increase the presser foot pressure. You need to bump it up. Really, really hard to see. You just barely see it right there in the middle there. I wish I had like a darker denim, like really, really dark blue. It'd be much easier to see. You can see what we just went through. Lock stitch, no different. It's equally hard to see. It's equally hard to see. And some of you might be viewing this on a larger device, and it might be easier for you to see the stitches, but they are, number one, I'm dealing with a white thread on a lighter denim. I wish this were a dark, dark, dark denim, and then it'd be much easier to see it. But you can tell by not seeing any looping. You're not seeing any looping. You're not seeing any bird nesting or anything like that. Our 9014 leather needle got the job done through 6 layers of denim. So I think that's really, really outstanding. And I apologize for the color of this denim. It's so much harder to see it. So much harder to see it. There you can see a little bit more of it there. All right. Well, you just have to take my word for it, and I'll send this with the machine when I send it out to Maryland to Nestor. So he'll be able to hold this in his own hand and maybe even decide to stitch down it again if he wants to do that. But this camera is having a little bit of trouble picking that color up. All right. So what do we sew now? We've got genuine elk hide right here. I've got a single layer. I've got 2 layers. We'll probably do a single layer first. Then we'll add the second layer and go through that as well. Then I've got this saddle grade leather. I've got 2 layers of that. We'll do a single layer, then we'll add the second layer to it, was kind of my thought. And then finally, as a culmination, we've got this protected full grain leather, and I'll put on some music of some sort, and we'll go around and around and around and around and around and around and around, which with a machine like this, with as big of an engine as it has, that's going to take a little bit of effort to try to keep that from racing away from me. A little bit of an effort to keep it from racing away. So I don't know if there's any input. Give me the input. We can do elk hide first. We can do saddle grade first. It doesn't matter to me. So I'll look at the chat real quick. It looks like Candido can see it. See, I'm dealing with these reading glasses, and it's harder for me to see stuff. I've got to probably go to the eye doctor. I've got to go to the eye doctor and get some new spectacles, get some new spectacles. So I'm glad Candido said he can see it. So I'm guessing others can see it as well. Because I don't want to be like some channels that they just flash it real quick and you can't even see the caliber and the quality of stitching. This 185J is really a fabulous stitcher. It does beautiful stitch quality, and I'm hoping you're able to see that. All right, so let's see here. I think I saw saddle gray leather. Saddle gray leather. So we'll go down a single layer of that to begin with, and then we'll add that second layer of saddle gray leather after that. Okay, get my take-up arm all the way up. Again, on this machine, it's not going to be as critical, but it still helps a little bit with the launch. All right, so saddle gray leather, single layer, and then we'll go to 2 layers after that. All right, here we go. I'm having to really hold that motor back. Hopefully Nestor doesn't get a speeding ticket with this machine. Oh, that is some beautiful stitching. Wow. Wow. Beautiful stitching. Let's add that second layer. But I want to show you the stitching on this first, because when we add that second layer, we're going to cover up our lock stitching for the initial sew off, and I don't want to do that until you have a chance to see it. So saddle grade leather, saddle grade leather. I'm having trouble talking today. I don't know if anyone else is. That is a page 34 plus stitch, I would say. That's some good looking stitching right there. I like looking at it vertically too. It just gives you a different feeling for the stitch, doesn't it? From top to bottom, that is just absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Lock stitch, we'll turn it around, look at that lock stitch. I think I'll look at it like this first. Notice there's no skip stitching, there's no loopiness. Our tension balance right now is really quite good. We sewed cotton, we sewed denim, we sewed leather now. We haven't had to make a single adjustment to that tension whatsoever. Down here, we kind of let in that nap a little bit, don't we? There it is. That nap kind of covers it up. You almost have to pull it back like you're giving it a little bit of a haircut. Giving it a little bit of a haircut. So that's also a beautiful lock stitch as well. I'm really pleased with our tension is maintaining beautifully through a wide field of materials. The lock stitch and also that top stitch as well. So now we're going to add that second layer in. We're going to add that second layer of saddle grade leather. We'll put them back to back so it's more easy to see the stitch quality. There's our lock stitch from the original sew off. Now we're going to add this second layer. So after I had the second layer, we're looking at probably 6 to 8 ounces of leather. If you look at it like that, a little bit hard to see. Let me see if I can do it like this, maybe. And saddle grade leather is, I mean, it's no joke. It's uh, it's a leather that can be used in a number of applications, and it is designed to stand up to all that wear and all that abuse. So now we're going to be doubling the stakes, trying to go through 2 layers of this. I'm going to be a little bit smarter this time and go up to our presser foot pressure right here. And I'm just going to give it about a turn and a half or so, give us a little bit more of an edge. I just gave it almost 2 full turns so that we can try to maintain the fullness of that stitch length. I'm set all the way down on 6 stitches per inch. We're going to lose a little bit because of the density of this leather and the 2 layers being fed evenly together. But all in all, that will help us maintain as much of that stitch length as we can get. As much of that stitch length as we can get. All right, this time I'm going to give it a little bit more gas and hopefully get a nice clean launch against these 2 layers of saddle grade leather. I don't want that needle to hit the leather and stop. I want to see if we can press through it this time and get the job done. Just looking over my, yeah, that's a good shot. All right, here we go. Let's give this a go. Here we go. I kind of went up and I was kind of fluttering it up and down a little bit, but the machine had no trouble at all making its way through that. Now, the thing I'll be curious about when we turn it over, right now I can look at this and I can say, good looking top stitch, very good looking top stitch. When I look at it side by side, they're basically going to be nearly identical. This one might be a little bit shorter. It was compressed just a little bit because of the feed factor. But on the back side, that's going to be the big deal. On the back side, did we maintain proper tension? Because we adjusted the presser foot pressure, but we did not adjust the upper tension, bumping it up. So I'll be curious. I'm going to curious to take a peek and see how we did with that. All right, pull that. But 6 to 8 ounces of saddle grade leather, most people with a household sewing machine would never, ever, ever conceive of being able to do that. But this 185J, I'm going to leave that tail a little bit longer so we can distinguish the 2 rows. This 185J is more than capable of doing that. All right, let's go over here. So our, let me see, sequence. Our bottom row is going to be our second row. And actually, I'm seeing now that as I'm looking at this lock stitch, I have a view of the lock stitch on the back right now. Bumping the tension up would have been a good choice to give it more emphasis. We might stitch it off one more time so we can look at the 2 in contrast. So again, our second sew off, let's see, this was our first sew off on the top row. Our second sew off is on the bottom row. So you can look at the 2 comparatively. Still a very, very good looking stitch through all of that leather, all that leather. Very good looking stitching. Top stitching. And now we're going to look at the lock stitching. And like I said, I'm probably going to stitch this off one more time after we make an upper tension adjustment so we can see the impact that we can bring. Because when I turn it around to the lock stitch, it's underemphasized. There wasn't enough pull up from that upper tension to define this lock stitch to the level that we would want to have it defined. So let me show that to you a little bit closer. I'll spin it around this way. This is our lock stitch. It's not bad. It's not a bad lock stitch, but we can make it better. We can make it a little bit better. And some of you might be looking at it and saying, what's wrong with it? That's a good looking lock stitch. Well, it is. But as I'm looking at it right here close up, I can see straight away that it's a little bit underserved and we can make it a little bit better. So we're going to do that probably. See right there, especially, it's just a little bit underdefined. But that still is, for all that leather, really, really good stitching. Really, really good stitching. Let's see if I can cut this end off so you can look at it evenly and just get an idea for the thickness of it again. So this is the end right here to give you an idea of how much leather we just went through. That's a lot of leather, folks. That's a lot of leather. Again, about six ounces, maybe even just a little bit more. And this 185J, no problem whatsoever going through it. No problem at all. And laid down some really good stitching as well. But I think we'll just stitch one more line because I want you all to see that we can be happy with a stitch off. We can be quite happy with it. You know, overall it's good, but we can make it a little bit better. So right now our upper tension, the way I have this pre-calibrated, our upper tension for all the sewing we've done so far is at 5.5, right about 5.5. If I show you the front of it like that. So we haven't made a single adjustment for any of the sewing we've done, not on the denim, the 6 layers, not on the, what else do we sew? Not on the cotton, not on any of the sewing that we've done. But on these 2 layers of saddle gray leather, we are going to make a slight adjustment up. We're going to go from 5.5 to about 6.5. So I'm going to adjust this right now. And again, our maximum is 9. Our maximum is 9. So I'm going to go from 5.5 to right around 6.5. We're going to stitch this one more time and see how much more we can make that lock stitch poppy. I'm actually going to mark it so we don't get confused, or I don't get confused. I'm going to put a little X right here next to the row that we've already done. Yeah, 1X is good. 1X is good. We stitch it off one more time and see what kind of impact. I'll go on this side of the leather right here. We bumped up our upper tension just slightly, and then we'll look at those 2 rows side by side and see what impact through our simple little upper tension adjustment we brought. All right, let me get my foot firmly planted on that foot controller, and let's launch into our second sew off. This was our first, this was our single layer. This was our double layer. And now we're going to be doing another double layer right here with that slight tension adjustment to see what impact, if any, we can bring to that quality of that lock stitch. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's give her a go and rock and roll. Here we go. And I'll leave these tails a little bit longer so we can distinguish easily which row, which column is which column. Oh yes. I love the power of knowledge, don't you? Let me clip this one, the first one we did there so I don't get confused by that. I love the power of knowledge. We know what to do and we're able to do it, and all of a sudden we're able to bring a noticeable impact. A noticeable impact. Oh yeah. Ha ha, yes. Ha ha. All right. So I'll show you this first of all. Just making sure I've got it orientated correctly here. Yes, I do. Okay. So the middle row right there, the middle row was our first stitch off going through 2 layers. This middle row right here. The top row right there is the one we just did after I made that slight adjustment. You notice that we still have, and as I get closer to it, I'll show you. This was our first one through 2 layers. Our final one right there through 2 layers. We bumped up the upper tension. You always have to be careful because if you bump up the upper tension too much, you can steal away some of the definition from the top stitch. We did not do that. And we just went from 5.5 to 6.5, and we still have a very good looking, top stitch. See if I can get that lined up correctly here. It's a real good looking top stitch, page 34. We didn't steal anything away at all from the top stitch. So again, the middle row was our first sew off through 2 layers of saddle grade leather. The top row was our second one after we made the tension adjustment. We still got a absolutely page 34, if not a page 34 plus top stitch. And I only emphasize that because if you adjust that upper tension up too much to get a more defined lock stitch, if you go too far, you're going to compromise the integrity of your top stitch. And we did not do that. Beautiful stitching. Now, the big deal is, what are we going to see on the other side? That top row that does not have the X next to it is our second attempt. Let's see what we did. That's some beautiful stitching right there. Where's our X? All the way over there. There's our X. That's our first attempt. It was okay, but we adjusted up that upper tension, and I think our top row that we're going to be looking at is even more page 34. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm just totally confused right now. Page, you know what I mean? It's better. It's better. Let's take a closer look at it. Let's see if that top row is just a little bit better than that bottom row that has that X. Once the camera decides to focus on it, that is. There it is. So there's our X. You see how it has just a little bit more poppiness? You can look at those 2 rows together, and that top row, to me at least, stands out as a better looking stitch. A better looking stitch row. It's got a little bit more clarity, a little bit more definition. And all we did was just increase the upper tension by 1, from 5.5 to 6.5. And to my eyes, at least, it's noticeably better. Nothing wrong with the bottom one. A lot of people would be more than happy with that. But as you look at the bottom compared to the top just has a nicer, more completed clarity look to it. It just looks better. Just looks better. So know sometimes it's easy to overcome problems as long as you understand what to do. So now you can look at them vertically. That might be easier to see some of that definition. Lock stitch and top stitch. This is a very, very good example of what a household sewing machine can do when it's optimized with workshop magic. There are a lot of household machines that would not be able to come close to going through 2 layers of saddle gray leather like this with this caliber of stitching. But Nestors can get the job done and then some. If I really wanted to push it, I would go up to a size 100 or a size 110 leather needle, and we would go to 3 layers of saddle gray leather. That's the level of confidence I have in this 185J. With the proper needle, a 100 or even a 110, which is a size 16 or a size 18 compared to the size 14 we're working with right now, we could go through 3 layers of this. With a hand start, using a size 110, which is size 18 needle, I'd be willing to try 4 layers of saddle gray leather. And I'm not just blowing smoke. I would be happy to do it. But I think we proved our point. You know, between the 6 layers of denim and the 2 layers of saddle gray leather, I think we proved our point as to how strong this machine is. And also what a great stitcher it is, too. What a great stitcher. All right, let's move over to the elk hide. Elk hide right away is going to be a thicker sew off. It's got a little bit thicker hide to it. You kind of look at that from the side. That's the thickness of some belts that people wear. I mean, that's probably 6 to 8 ounces one layer, close to 6 ounces, I would say. We're going to start with 1 layer, then we're going to go up to 2. Again, just to show that this 185J is not just another pretty face. It's also a very, very strong machine, very capable machine when it comes to going through some crazy thickness. And I'll leave the tension on 6.5 right now. I'll leave it there because we're going to finish off this sew off on this single layer of elk hide, then the second layer of elk hide, and then I'll bring it back maybe just slightly before we go to the final sew off of sewing around in a circle on this protected full grain leather. Otherwise, we'll have a little bit of a de-emphasized top stitch if we have that turned up too high for that. All right, let's go through this single layer of elk hide. We'll then add that second layer of elk hide, and then we're going to do our final sew off to some fun music, and we'll wrap this up celebrating Nestor's machine. I believe Emma told me that Nestor is on holiday right now, as our European friends say. We say vacation. We say vacation typically in the U.S. In Europe, they commonly say they're on holiday. So right now, Nestor is on holiday, but he'll be back soon, and then we'll coordinate getting this shipped out to him because this machine is ready to get the job done. I'll tell you that right now. All right, let me get our take-up arm all up. We'll go down to this single layer, and then we'll go to our second layer. All right, here we go. And I'm going to do this without a hand start. I think we can get the job done. I'll just give it a little bit more gas. And yeah, get her locked and loaded here. All right, here we go. So that's 100% elk hide. There we go. Yeah, yeah, nice balance, nice balance. I think I'm starting to tire this needle out just a little bit. I'm still seeing really, really good stitch quality, but yeah, I've been sewing a lot of stuff with this needle. Not only the ones I showed you, but some additional ones as well. So, okay, so let's look at this single layer of alkyd first. Again, alkyd is going to be a little bit more of a dense leather than some of the other common leathers you hear about. It's going to be a little bit more dense than vegetable tan. It's going to be a little bit more dense than Italian leather. So how easily Nestor's machine just got through this is really a testimony of how strong this machine is. I think I saw Emma just wrote something like mini muscle. Yeah, it's definitely a mini muscle machine. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Wow. 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 Very, very nice. Very, very nice looking stitching. Can you kind of look at the edge there, the leather we just went through? That's some thick stuff, folks. That's some thick stuff. Beautiful stitching. Beautiful stitching right there. Turn it over, look at that lock stitch. It needs a haircut. It needs a haircut big time. I'm gonna have to pull this back so we can take a look at this. I can see it up close, but we gotta pull it back so y'all can see it. There it is. There it is. Yes. Very, very nice. Very nice. Notice again, no skip stitching, no loopiness, just absolutely gorgeous stitching from this 185J. From 1954 is the year that Emma picked for her brother. Down here, that's really thick, that nap. There you can catch a glimpse of it right there. And look at to the left of there, right there by my finger. Look at the thickness of the leather we just went through. And now we're going to be doubling it. Well, you get the idea. That's crazy thick. And this 185J from 1954, just doing a bang up job. Really quite a nice job. So let's add that second layer now. Let's add that second layer and see what we can do against what is a very tough sew off. I want to show you from the side so you can appreciate what we're about to attempt with Nestor's 185J. If you don't think that's a tough sew off, contact me and I'll mail you some of this alkyd, and then you can do a video of your machine going through this. Because I'll tell you one thing, this is not an easy peasy sew off. We're looking at right here probably about 10 ounces of leather, right around 10 ounces of leather. That's thicker than a heavy belt. That's thicker than a heavy belt. You see that? I hope you can see that. I think you can see that. I am seeing the Schmetz needle people right now that follow us on YouTube and Facebook literally sitting on the edge of their seat, biting their nails right now. They're biting their nails at Schmetz, saying, "Oh my God, is he really going to do that? Is he serious? Is he serious? with our 9014 leather needle. I mean, it's a pretty sturdy needle, but that's 10 to 12 ounces of elk hide, 10 to 12 ounces of genuine elk hide. Look at that. No fear. No fear. We got this. We got this. All right, let's see if we can get that in place. And we'll do our final crazy heavy duty sew off, and then we'll move on to our final sewing in a circle thing that we do. And because of this, the density of this elk hide, I'm going to give our presser foot pressure just a few more little turns. Here it is right up here. Give it just a few more little turns. Give us a little bit of an edge. I'm also looking at my upper tension. I don't know. I'm looking at 6.5. I might just give us a tiny little edge and go up to 7. Might go up to 7. I think I'm going to go up to 7. I'm going to go up to 7 on this. I mean, that's a lot of leather, folks. That's a lot of leather. We're talking about 10 ounces of leather. Yeah, we made those 2 little adjustments. We bumped up our presser foot pressure. We just bumped up our upper tension from 6.5 to 7. I hope we're okay. I think we're okay. We might be okay. Or as Willy Wonka says, never doubt what no one is sure of. Never doubt what no one is sure of. Because I didn't test this off camera. Didn't do it. Didn't do it. So we'll see what happens. Vote of confidence. I feel inspired to ring the bell. And no one leave class. We're not dismissed yet. We're not dismissed. All right, here we go. This should be fun. Yeah. Haha. Oh, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little nervous. I'm just being honest with you. I'm a little bit nervous, but yeah, let's get her done. No whining, no gnashing of teeth. Just do it. Just do it. All right, here we go. Whew. Oh my goodness gravy. Oh my goodness gravy. I gotta look. Yeah. 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 I'll take that one. That's a crazy sew off. See this cotton thread. This cotton thread drives me a little bit buggy compared to polyester. See how it's doing like a, it's like you need a snake charmer. You need a snake charmer to manage this stuff. Just go to the rear and be nice. Just go back that way. Stop curling around. Stop curling around. Does anyone else have that problem with cotton thread where it just decides to kind of do a curl thing on you? Kind of does a curl thing. Oh, let me do something real quick. That's our second row right there that we just, let me double check. Yep, that's our second row. I'm going to put an X by our row. Or maybe I'll put a little dot. Let's put a little dot. This is the first row we did right here. And then our second row is below that. And obviously, because we just added the second layer, we only have 1 stitch row on the back, so that's easy. All right, let's look at these. Let's take a look at these. Again, we're sewing on a 1954 Canadian made by way of Kilbowie, Scotland. 185J. It's got a 0.8 amp motor, almost a full amp. And we have done everything from 2 layers of saddle grade leather, 6 layers of denim, and now we just did 2 layers of genuine elk hide. You want to talk about the thick of thick? Check that out. If you don't think that's thick, then you have a different lookout on life, because that's thick. That's very, very thick. That's crazy thick. So our first row there, it's on top. Our second row we did is on the bottom. Take a look at that stitch quality through all of this leather, all this leather. If you're doing some sort of a leather good or you're making a leather project, you're going to have some really, really good stitch presentation on that product, whatever it is. And when you're sewing at this level, you're sewing at this level of probably about 10 to 12 ounces of leather, genuine elk hide. You really shouldn't be at a 90-14 needle, truthfully. Our needle right now is a little bit too small for this sew off. We should be at a size 116, 100/16, a size 16 needle, or maybe even a 110 size 18 needle. This is really a little bit too small for this type of sew off, but we pulled it off anyway. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to encroach our stitch presentation just slightly. Let's take a look at that again. Let me get that in there. There it is. Yeah, we should be at a size 16 or an 18 needle. So the Schmetz, our friends at Schmetz Needles that follow us right now, take a deep breath. We did it. We did it. We did it. So this again on the bottom is our second sew off. First sew off, single layer. Now what about that lock stitch? What are we going to see? What are we going to see on that lock stitch? Is it going to be loopy? Are we going to see skip stitching? No, but we are going to see a little bit of an encroachment on the stitch. And by that, I mean that the stitch will not be as good as it could be if we stepped up that needle size just a little bit. We really need to, when you're going through this much leather, let me show you again. When you're going through this much leather, you're going to want to be at a size 16 or a size 18, which equates to a size 100 or a size 110 Schmetz needle. We're using too small of a needle right now. And you'll see the results of that when we look at the lock stitch. We pulled it off on the top stitch. We pulled it off. But we didn't pull it off quite as well. We're still doing really well. But here's our lock stitch now. Here it is. We pulled it off, but we could have pulled it off better with a larger needle. Camera's going. I think I'm tired. I don't know if I want to focus. See if it'll focus this way. Yeah, there it is. It's a good looking stitch through that much leather. But if you do this on a regular basis, go to a size 100, go to a size 110 leather needle, size 18, and you'll see the quality of that stitch even go up higher than it is now. Size does matter when it comes to certain types of stitching. Size does matter. That's a really good looking lock stitch through all of that leather. Again, look at it from the side. I'm pinching those together. That's a lot of leather. And if Candido is still in the audience, part of my leadership team, yes, Candido, the Swedish beauty that I'm going to be preparing for you soon can handle this type of sewing, this level of sewing as well. And we'll be doing it when I present that machine. That's a lot of leather, folks. So there's our lock stitching again. Really quite nice, quite nice. Could make it better. We could make it better through a larger needle. Top stitching. Look at that. I got people that are going to watch this as a video from around the world later, and they're going to look at that and go, How the heck did he do that? How did he do that? Workshop magic, baby. Workshop magic. Yeah. Beautiful stitching. Oh, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, let me pick out some music. We'll do our final sew off. And just to recap, if you joined us a little bit late, we did some, and this is all with a leather needle. This is all with a leather needle. We did some general sewing on this 100% cotton with a stiffener. Got a beautiful, beautiful stitch result. Really, really quite lovely. And we went on. We did some denim sewing. Emma, again, this machine is being prepared for Emma's brother, Nestor, out in Maryland. And we debated 4 versus 6. We went with 6 layers of denim. That's what that looks like. And we laid down some, it's really hard to see it on here. If I had like a red thread or something brighter against this lighter denim, you'd be able to see it. But honestly, it's a beautiful, beautiful stitch. Candido said he could see it on his end. Beautiful stitch through these 6 layers of heavy grade denim. Then we went on to this saddle gray leather. We did a single layer. We did 2 layers. Beautiful stitching on that as well. Through a lot of leather, a lot of saddle gray leather. And then we just got done doing this genuine elk hide. Look at that from the side. Thicker than a belt, a heavy belt. And we laid down some beautiful page 34 top stitching, and also a beautiful page 34 lock stitching as well. Through all of that leather. Unbelievable. I know I'm going to get emails and Facebook Messenger notes and probably phone calls or text messages from people talking about their 185J or their 185K not being able to do anything close to this. Nothing close to it. And yet, as they watch that and they rewind it and they rewind it again, they're going to be like, wow, crazy. And again, we could even have a better outcome if we step up that needle size to a size 16 or a size 18. So I'm really, really pleased and very privileged to have the honor to prepare this machine for Emma's brother, Nestor, out in Maryland. And now we're going to wrap up this live stream. Don't even know how long we've been running. Just short of 3 hours. We're going to wrap up this final live stream sew off, sewing protected full grain leather. And yeah, and then we're going to call it a day. Call it a day. And then I'll get back to work on this featherweight for Mary that I have to get done. Mary's the same one. If you're brand new to us, Mary's the same one that gave me a number of different machines to prepare for her, including that 66K hand crank that ended up going out to Mindy in Las Vegas. That's the same Mary that had all of those machines. I just finished her Necky machine that I'm going to try to live stream before she comes to pick it up. And then I also have a featherweight as well that I've got to finalize and see if we can sneak that into a live stream before she drives in. I think 2.5 hours is how far she's traveling, something like that, out in Michigan somewhere. She's driving in to pick up these last 2 machines, the featherweight and then the Necky machine as well. And then my slate will be clear with her finally. My slate will be clear with all of those machines that she brought to the workshop. Okay. I don't see anything I have to respond to. We see there might be one text message. No, that's an old text message. Tim wanted to know the weight of this, which I'm saying is probably around 30 to 32 pounds. My scale is not reliable right now. My scale is definitely not reliable. Okay, let's see here. Pick out some music. See what I already have pre-recorded. Let's see here. I've got some. I thought I had jazz on here, but I don't see the jazz music. I'm feeling like some jazz music right now. I've got the Space Odyssey music that we did recently for that Rocketeer machine. And then I've got marching music is always good. So Emma, what do you want? Do you want space age? Do you want marching music, or do you want dance music, Japanese music, which no way relates to this machine? And then I've got polka music. So I'll leave it up to Emma since she's the family member doing this on behalf of her brother. So those are the types of music I have on my phone right now. And I can put those on when we do this final sew off. So I'm looking for a response from Emma right now. Marching music. Being a former military guy, I never can get enough marching music. So we're going to do a little bit of marching music for our final sew off. Some of this is like really, really old marching music. Really old marching music. Oh, these are the ones I did off camera too. I'm going to put those over there also. All right, here we go. The infamous Sewing in a Circle with Scott. Let me clip my threads real quick. All right, back to fun. I'm going to hand turn the rest of this. It's just a little bit too tight for me. Oh, my needle is getting tired. It looks like right near the end, I've got a little bit of a skip stitch. That's a product of that needle. The rest of the stitching looks great. Yep, my needle has a burr on it. Right here on the end, I've got a couple skits. Let me stop the music. I'm obviously going to replace this needle after all of the havoc that we put this needle through, going through that incredibly thick leather sewing. And now we're at the final sew off with this protected full grain. I can see that my needle is done. My needle is done. We had some really good stitching here. When we get to the very center, especially as I'm flexing this needle to try to make that turn, you're going to notice 2 points, maybe 3 points where we have a skip stitch. That's not a hook timing issue. That's the needle is done. I pushed this needle too far. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm not going to go any further. We'll take a look at the stitching, and as we get right to the center core, you'll see those skip stitches 1, 2, 3 that are a direct result of that needle needing to be swapped out. Even Schmetz needles reach their limit after you take them through that much leather sewing on camera and off camera. And that's okay. We know that nothing lasts forever, not even a Schmetz needle. No offense, Schmetz, no offense. All right, let's take a look at the final stitching here, which is really, really good. Even though that needle finally said, I've got enough. I've had enough. You'll see it right in here in the center core. Beautiful, beautiful stitching all the way. There's a skip. There's a skip. There's a skip. Actually, oh, Susie just sent me a note saying, please send Nestor a cow country hat out in Maryland. I'll remember to do that, Susie. Matter of fact, I'll probably give Emma a choice. So this is gorgeous stitching on this protected full grain leather. But after we beat this needle up with all the other sewing on camera, off camera, including 2 layers of elk hide, 2 layers of saddle grade leather, 6 layers of denim, and all the other sewing I did off camera as well, the needle finally has given up the ghost right here in the center. But that is some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stitching. So if you get to a point where you really push your Schmetz needles too far and you're going through leather, I always say to leather workers, if I prepare a machine for them to sew leather, as I've done multiple times, make sure you keep a fresh needle in there. Keep a fresh needle in that machine. Otherwise, you're going to start to have skip stitching. That's what happened to us here. And that's okay. It shows you what can happen in spite of having beautiful, beautiful stitch quality. Lock stitching, absolutely gorgeous as well. Absolutely gorgeous lock stitching. We get really close to that. There, it's really hard to see, isn't it? Got to really, really pull it back. So beautiful lock stitching, also beautiful top stitching. And it wasn't until the very end that our Schmetz 9014 needle that I told you when we went through that elk hide, it was too small. It caused a deformity or a barb on the end of that needle. And then when we got to the end, it finally said, I've tried to hold it together. I've tried to hold it together. But that 9014 leather needle finally said, enough's enough. And right on the center point, we had a couple of skip stitches, a direct result of a needle saying, I've run my course. I did a great race. I'm done. I'm done. But all the other stitching speaks for itself. Beautiful stitching. So that's it, folks. Nestor's machine is obviously ready to get the job done. I'll put a fresh needle in. I'll make sure there's a full bobbin. And once Emma gives me the green light and says that Nestor's back from his holiday, we'll get this incredible 1954 Singer 185J heading towards him in the great state of Maryland. And we will include one of Susie's hats as well, heading out there to Maryland. So as Nestor's going around the Annapolis area, and any of you that have even a little bit of military knowledge know that the Annapolis area is a famous area for military. There's a military academy out there, probably military academies out there. And that's where Emma's brother calls home, out in that neck of the woods. So what a privilege and honor to have all of you here today. This machine is just, if you've never thought about a Canadian machine before, give it serious consideration after seeing what this machine is capable of doing. And let me rotate it. We'll take a little bit of a look at it as we wrap up with some music, some more military music. since Annapolis is a military area. And just to recap again what we accomplished on this live stream, why don't we look at off camera first? Two layers of protected full grain leather. It's the same leather we just wrapped up with, sewing in a circle. And you can see with a fresh needle going through 2 layers of this, not a problem. Beautiful stitching, 2 layers of protected full grain leather. Is what I did off camera. Trying to see across the room here. Yeah, you can see that. Then off camera also, cotton, obviously, more saddle grade leather. On camera, this is the craziest sew off that I've done recently. 2 layers of this genuine elk hide, which is about 10 to 12 ounces of leather. Not a single skip stitch on this, but that needle finally, when we got to our last sew off, said enough. But before that, we did saddle grade leather, 2 layers of that. I'll angle this down a little bit more. 6 layers of denim with some spandex. 100% cotton, beautiful stitching on that as well. We put all this together along with our very final sew off, all on this Schmetz 9014 needle. Talk about a needle running the race and doing a marvelous job. We did our final sew off, sewing around in a circle, and it even laid down page 34 plus stitching there. But right at the end, it said, I'm done. I'm done. And we had a couple of skip stitches down there because that needle is just shot. But this is our sew off sandwich today, saying that this machine, once I change out that needle, put a fresh bobbin in, this machine is ready to get the job done for Nestor out in Annapolis, Maryland. So thank you again to Emma for bringing this project to me to give a special gift for Nestor's birthday that was last month. And just sending him a peach of a machine that he's going to have a lot of fun with. But I think this qualifies as passing, don't you? Most people would run it through a single little sew off. That's it. We run it through a sewing Olympics when we're at Cow Country. So there it is. And again, my thanks to Schmetz Needles. My thanks to Schmetz Needles that follow us on Facebook and on YouTube for producing a needle that can go through all of this before it finally says, all right, I'm tagging out. Put my replacement needle in. I've done my job. And yes, it did. All right. God bless everybody. Thank you to the leadership team. Thank you to everybody that joined us, the hundreds of people that popped into the live stream to see what we were up to today. I think we peaked at about 500 something or other. And that's just a blessing. And I'm truly honored and humbled by that. So I'm going to turn our light on now that we're done. Turn our light on and put on some marching music. Annapolis, Maryland is about as military as you can get. And we'll wrap this up with some marching music as you say your goodbyes. And hopefully I have another machine to present to you on Tuesday if I'm ready. I got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. A lot of stuff going on in my life right now. So I'll see if I'm ready to do a Tuesday live stream. Hopefully I am. God bless everybody. And thank you again to the leaders for all you do. Hey, adjust your camera up, up, up. There it is. Ha ha! Yes. Congratulations, Nestor, and happy belated birthday. Happy belated birthday from your sister, Emma. Marching music, where are you? Yes. Oh, yeah, I know this song. All right, take care, everybody. God bless, and go Canada, or something like that. See ya.